Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're coming here for the first time, try to subscribe to this channel because I'll be talking about a lot of things. So anyways, let's get into the topic. In the past couple of weeks, or should I say in the past couple of months, foreigners in the UK are actually facing a different type of challenge. There are multiple challenges that can actually happen when you're coming to a country for the first time. I mean, people face different type of challenges anyways, from the food to the culture difference as compared to your own foreign country, to the weather. For people that are from sub-Saharan Africa like myself, you normally face weather difference. You normally never seen anything like being in a very cold weather, unlike being in the UK where it's normally very gray and dark and you don't understand what the weather will be in the next 1 hour. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things you face coming into a foreign countries. But recently, foreigners in the UK are not just facing this type of issue, but they are now facing issues that are policy or government or authority made. So what do I mean about that? So recently, the UK government announced some different kind of rules that actually doesn't sit right with so many foreigners, and those rules we'll be talking about later in this video. But anyways, most foreigners used to think this main issue, or this issue of anti-immigration, we don't need immigrants coming into the country anymore, has something to do with this woman called Suella Braverman. She was the former Home Secretary of the Home Office in the UK. You understand what I mean by that? So she was the former Home Office Secretary of the UK, and coming from a foreign background herself, I wouldn't call her a foreigner, but she's like of second generation British. At least her parents were immigrants into the UK. So many people expected more fairness and more understanding or more leniency from a person such as herself, and also from the current prime minister, who happens to be the first prime minister to be a full-blown person who is not of British origin. People expected more, as per more leniency on immigration, more understanding about immigration, and being able to support immigrants, as they would be able to put that into perspective to some extent. But one thing I kind of realized is most foreigners in the UK don't understand how the system of first world countries work. Most of these policies, or most of these ideologies, or most of these new laws going around in the country is not just a result of just one individual who doesn't want foreigners in the country. It is a collective ideology by people in a democratic country. It is more like the leaders are basically just people who just dance to the tune of the people, because it's a democracy. If you're not really listening to the people, then you probably lose your seat in the next election. That's how it works anyways. So in case you've not heard about these new laws, I would like to actually highlight some of it to you, so you probably understand and we'll be on the same page in this conversation. So first things first, before 2024, which is next year, people who are coming into the UK are allowed to actually bring their dependents. And this includes students, and this includes care workers who are coming to the UK to do care job. They are allowed to bring their family members. Now the new law says foreign students who are doing masters are not allowed to bring their relatives anymore. A foreign student coming into the UK as a master's student is not allowed to bring a dependent, and this dependent could include maybe the wife or the husband or the child. Before 2024, you are allowed to do that. You're allowed to bring your relative. You're coming to study, you're allowed to have your family around you to make the whole study process quite easy. But then from 2024, that would not be the case anymore. And this law is not just limited to that. Care workers coming to work in the UK on the Tier 2 visa, which is a visa that sponsors workers into coming into the UK, would no longer be allowed to also bring a relative into the UK if they are not earning more than 38,000. Although as of yesterday, or I think today, the law has been revised and they said it's now £29,000, which still doesn't make the whole thing easy, because A lot of people don't earn that, especially if you're coming into the UK as a foreigner. For a UK company to actually be paying you that much, they'd rather just employ a British person anyway. So that's just the government way of saying we no longer want foreigners in the UK, or at least we no longer want foreigners who are not earning a certain amount of money. Let's say in writing, that is what they are saying. They no longer want foreigners who are earning less than 29,000 pounds in the UK, because majority of foreigners coming into the UK as their first UK paying job will probably not earn up to that, and that will significantly affect immigration. One major thing I would like to also highlight in this whole situation is foreigners in the UK have to understand that the ideology of immigration being a problem in the UK is not something that is just starting now. It's not something that is just starting now. It is a very, very strong ideology among British people. Let's look at the bigger picture. The UK government asked, or they told the people to vote if they wanted to stay in Brexit or they want to leave Brexit. It was in a democracy. Nobody forced anybody. And eventually there was a vote for leaving Brexit. Majority of people who voted to leave Brexit did not vote to leave Brexit for any other reason than the issue of immigration. So many of the British people voted for Brexit without even understanding how it would affect them daily. The only reason why majority of these people voted for Brexit is because of immigration. They voted for Brexit to give UK the power to decide who comes into the country or who does not come into the country. They believe by both voting against being in the European Union, they would be able to avoid Romanians, Germans, Irish, just people that are not British from coming into the UK. And this is the exact reason why I think it is very important for foreigners in the UK to be quite careful when actually dealing with British people and when actually talking about this whole thing with British people, because I wouldn't say the ideology is a xenophobic ideology, and I wouldn't say it's a racist ideology, because this doesn't just affect a black person, it doesn't affect just a brown person, it does affect a lot of people. I mean, even British people, it does affect a lot of British people. For example, this law does prevent some British people who does have foreign spouse from bringing their own spouse into the UK. So this is just not an ideology among, this is not just a race, this is not a racist ideology or a xenophobic ideology. It's just an ideology that British people thinks does protect their rights as British. I don't know if that makes sense. Now, let me actually highlight why I think foreigners in the UK needs to be really careful about this whole situation and how sensitive it is. So, like I mentioned before, I don't think it's a xenophobic or a racist policy. I just think it is just one of those policies that people are making to protect themselves. Now, what do I mean by that? Most British people, or a lot of British people, or at least British people that are not in the top class, in the top 10% of the British society, believe one thing: immigration has significantly affected the standard of living for an average British person. What do I mean by that? Let me give it multiple examples here. Example number one: housing. For so many British people, housing has become significantly expensive since so many foreigners are coming into the UK, because there is now less houses for more people. For example, if you have a city with 10,000 buildings in 2010, in which they have just maybe 20,000 occupants, you don't expect in pounds for they to be charging about 200, more than 250 pounds for a flat. You understand what I mean? But then now that you've got a lot of foreigners in the UK, hereby increasing the population significantly, housing is now quite expensive. And housing being expensive does not directly affect the way at which people are getting paid. Now there is a negative effect to that through immigration. You see, British people tend to work, yeah, British people tend to work against so many ideologies people have out there that, oh, British people are very lazy and they don't want to do anything. British people tend to work. I would agree with that because I see a lot of British people that they do a lot of work and they work their ass off. Trust me, they work a lot. But then while working, they expect a fair pay. They expect significant pay. They expect being paid very fairly. In the past couple of years, also according to this whole ideology among British people, due to immigration, jobs are not getting paid as well paid as they used to be because of immigration. Let me give an example of that. Warehouse job. I was talking to a friend of mine recently who said majority of the warehouse jobs in the UK now pays maybe less than 11 quid per hour, 11 pound per hour, or they even paid minimum wage. Warehouse jobs are some of the worst jobs you can do in the UK. They are actually quite tedious, they're actually quite stressful, and most people would actually avoid them. Before now, if a British man is going to do such job, such warehouse job, is going to be expecting to be paid 15 quid an hour, 16 quid an hour. But then a foreigner comes into the UK that needs quick bucks, and converting such 15 quid an hour to what that person will get paid back home, it's a lot of money. And this person is actually ready to do it for 10 quid per hour. You know how that does negatively affect an average British man, and that makes them angry. And they'll be like, now the employers prefer actually hiring this foreigner who is actually ready to pay less for who is actually ready to accept less for a as compared to the British man who expects way more for the same amount of labor. And guess what? Even the foreigners will actually even do it faster. These are so many ways in which British people are really not happy about immigration, and the government have to listen to them. Even people in government sometimes understands that, oh, immigration has actually significantly helped our country. Like for example, one of the people at the end of this whole situation and actually having a very, very bad time with this whole thing are foreign students. As of 2023, foreign students actually added 42 billion pounds to the British economy. This is more than the GDP of so many countries, and a particular country, which is the UK, is able to raise this amount on foreign students alone. I believe for so many countries, this would be like like a golden opportunity, a kind of opportunity they would appreciate. And if it's that sector will be way cherished and they would actually appreciate these people. But the UK doesn't work that way. Foreign students are becoming one of the most persecuted, because even the new foreign secretary is actually saying, or the new home office secretary is actually saying, they are going to actually review the graduate visa route, which is one of the reasons why so many people chose the UK in the first place. The ability to stay in the UK for 2 years post graduation, but now they are talking about reviewing it and even probably even reducing the period you're able to stay post graduation. This is a sector that actually adds 42 billion pounds to the British economy. People need to be careful being in the UK. You have to understand that this is the people who rule the UK are not monarchs. They are not people who decide everything by what they feel, but they have to also listen to the people and actually make decisions based on things that they know this is what the majority wants. If not, they'll probably not even be voted into government in the next elections. So it is the reason why I'm saying foreigners needs to be careful. Okay, let's look at a news going all around recently. I think recently about 4 Nigerians who were actually arrested, who are actually jailed for actually maltreating an elderly woman at a care home. If you can see this news, you will understand that the headline alone just shows, if you see how the story of Lucy Lesbi went around in the UK, everybody was talking about Lucy Lesbi. In this particular news, the headline was 4 Nigerians. Like, they did not try to make 4 care workers or what have you, or mention their name. 4 Nigerian workers jailed for maltreating. It was glaring. They were trying to say these people are foreign. And he does go with the old narrative of how foreigners are not actually the ones saving the country, but rather coming into the country with bad behaviors and third world behaviors, and you know, blaming foreigners for some of the worst things that are happening in the country, rather than seeing how a huge percentage of doctors in the NHS are actually foreigners. Foreigners in the UK have to understand that you are in a foreign country and you need to be very careful. You need to understand that whatever opportunity you get, you need to take advantage of it, and at the end of the day, be a good citizen, because this is not your country. This is not where you were born. This is not where you're wanted. Perhaps you're wanted by the government to some extent, but perhaps the most attractive individual for people in the country. Do I think British people are racist? I would say no, absolutely not. Even back in my own country, whatsoever, if most people that are actually saying things against the British people and the ideology, you have to understand that even back in your own country, most people want to also protect their environment. It's like a human behavior, trying to have your own territory, try to have your best way in your own territory, and have to understand that your own territory should suit you the most. We can use South Africa as an example. When the xenophobia attack happened in South Africa, this was a situation about Africans attacking fellow Africans. This wasn't anything. Even the British people haven't even gone around and start attacking foreigners or trying to physically attack foreigners. But in the debate, they are trying to protect their own environment. And as foreigners, it is very important to actually be of good behavior, understand that we're in a foreign country, and do the right thing at the end of the day, and not rather think you're now in a foreign country and it does belong to you, or you got enough right, or you got as much right as foreigners, as British people. You don't have that. You're just another foreigner in the country, and you just have to be of good behavior and be a good ambassador of where you're coming from. Because as much as news such as this news does come online, you're only restricting the government from making certain decisions, or you're only making the government lose arguments against the general population who doesn't really want foreigners in the UK, who doesn't feel the amount of foreigners in the UK are actually good enough, and who wants Britain to be a white Christian country. Thank you guys very much. If you watched the video to this extent, I know you've really been enjoying the conversation. Thank you guys very much. Remember to actually like the video if you do enjoy it, and thank you very much. I'll see you guys another time. Peace.